Welcome back. I know it's been a minute for some. We've been getting a lot of clamor from the masses, and it's good that people have a lot of questions, and we've spread out our ministry across the internet, and so we don't have the ability as we once did to just constantly put up videos on YouTube, but we're making a more concerted effort and coming back and making sure that we don't neglect this ministry. So just pray for us that the Lord will give us and our brethren the ability to be able to handle all aspects. So with that, I'm Brother Zadok Ben Israel. With me today is Brother Judah. I'm going to do some reading today as Brother Judah does the teaching and expounding. And today we're going to deal with the topic of the color of Christ in Revelation chapter 2. What's interesting is that people have, our people in particular, have always wanted to feel special. You want to feel like you got a purpose in the world, and so it even come down to the point that a lot of them would agree with Malcolm X that Jesus is a black man.
Right.
And at the end of the day, no matter what culture you go to, the people who deal with their deities or their their divine ones, they will always be, when they try to give an image to them, they will always be shown in the likeness of the people in question. And I understand what my Hebrew Israelite brothers are doing, because at one time, some of the mindset I had myself. But to try and use, if you're going to say what Jesus may have possibly looked like, skin tone wise, when he walked among his brethren in the flesh, the nation who he was a part of, and you say, well, these were people of color, that's a whole other topic. Right. But when you go to Revelation 2, and try to use that to say this here is showing you Jesus is a black man, that John the Revelator saw a black man. Brothers and sisters, that is, I think that is very uneducated, because there's other things surrounding this so-called skin color proof that you're going to have to explain when it explains the appearance. That's right. Of this glory, of this glorious one that John turned around and saw in his vision. So we're going to let Brother Judah take us into some of the things that has gotten his attention, and let's see if we can get some clarity on what the scripture's saying, bro.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. And before we, and again, we want to look into this in Revelation chapter 2. Because historically speaking, we're not arguing whether Christ was, if you will, a black man or not. We're not arguing with that today. I don't think, I could find historical evidence from Tacitus and others from the tribe in which the Messiah come from, the tribe of Judah, that they were dark-skinned people.
Right.
Okay? Or if you will, of the shade and hue of the so-called American Negro. So when we present this, we're not arguing whether Christ was white or black. What we present here is an argument concerning the text in Revelation 2. All right? So now, what we would like to do is, I know first we'll go, one text that we would also address, because it may come to some people's mind, is that Daniel 10. Yeah, it's going to be that Daniel 10th chapter about the angel. Now, if we analyze that briefly, we're going to find something here in that Daniel chapter 10, when the angel came to him, and the Bible is going to give a description of this angel. Now, let's see, what verse is this here? Daniel 10 and verses, let's start reading at verse 5.
Okay, let me get there right quick. Daniel 10?
Daniel chapter 10 and verse 5. And we're going to read this right off the bat, just to even bring it into play, but it was something else we're going to find in Revelation chapter 2. Okay. What we're going to also learn in Revelation is how John draws from the prophets, imagery from the prophets, to describe some of his visions. All right? So just because you're reading this in Daniel chapter 10 don't mean this is exactly what John was talking. Because some people think Christ is an angel after reading this. No, he was drawn from this imagery as well, this description. But he's going to add a little bit more to that in Revelation 2. But what do we find here in Daniel 10 and starting at verse 5?
Then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, And behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude.
And here we understand this to be an angel. But notice the description. You got him clothed with beryl, okay? That color. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's a greenish color. And his face as the appearance of lightning.
What?
Lightning,
How would that look?
yeah, lightning, not brown. Lightning is illuminated. Okay? Number one, lightning is illuminated. That's what they call a fire in the sky. You look up at lightning, it's streaks of white, a bright, tight yellow. Okay? And what else is he adding here?
And his eyes were as lamps of fire.
His face as lightning lit up, and his eyes lit up. Even, I believe there's even more messages behind that, signifying his eyes, the light in his eyes and everything else. The Messiah sort of gives clues of this when he talks about the eye being darkened and the light of the eye being lit. But we have to understand biblical language. Now, all of a sudden, now we want to look past the lightning. His face is like lightning. His eyes like lamps of fire. And his arms and his feet like the color unto polished brass. And all of a sudden they think they talking about this color brass. Okay? This is cheap brass. You know that little brass ashtrays and little brass ornaments you got laying around in your house that you think about? This is not the same kind of brass. If you look at fine brass, the mixture is more even silver-like. So when you're looking at the lightning and the brightness in his arms, what you're really going to get is the brass, sparkling brass, will actually be reflecting this light. It's going to be sparkling. You have some brass, and you ever seen them tinted windows, you can just actually, it's like a mirror.
Yeah.
This is the image of some fine brass. It's not like this color here you will see. It's not like this color here. People think the brass he's talking about is talking about something black or burnt.
Right.
That is not what he's talking about even in this chapter. But then we're going to go a little bit further to show you, and we have some images right now. Just look at the images of fine brass. Okay? But then John not even going to add the fine brass. He's going to add a little something else to it to add to his illumination. Revelation 2. Revelation 2, and we could start at, let's see, verse 7.
Okay. Revelation 2 and verse 7.
Yeah, well, 1 and 7.
1 and 7. Okay. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him.
This is Revelation chapter 1 and 7. He said, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him.
And they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen.
Go ahead, bro.
I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. I, John, who also am your brother, and companion in tribulation, and in the kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ, was in the isle that is called Patmos for the word of God and for the testimony of Jesus Christ. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet.
He heard behind him a great voice as of a trumpet,
saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, and what thou seest write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea.
Go ahead, bro.
And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks.
He's seen 7 golden candlesticks. Number 1.
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white, like wool.
It didn't say it was nappy like wool. I know people want to do that, but they want to seem like it's like the text said it's nappy like wool. It said it's white like wool.
You have to understand metaphor and simile.
That's right.
If this is not dealing with the texture.
Not at all.
If his hair is coarse, if it's curly, if it's nappy, whatever the texture of the hair is, the context is that the color of it
didn't say nothing about
is
texture.
white like wool. It said as white as snow.
Now, we didn't say this. All you got, I know people, and it was amazing to me how they jumped in it and put their own interpretation. He's talking about the color, the brightness, the whiteness of it. He's not talking about the texture of it, okay?
Right.
Now, he's explaining, he said the hair of his head was white like wool, white as snow.
And when you hear some of our brethren, I remember many years ago during Black History Month, we would sing a song. You know, when we would do our Black History in the Bible gatherings, and we would sing a song, and in the song, what the sisters were saying, he had hair like wool. That's not textually accurate.
You might get it out of Daniel.
Yeah.
But not here. So according to the context, it's not talking about that. Even when you're dealing in Daniel, he's still not talking about texture when you deal with the context. Okay? He's talking about the ancients of days coming. And it's not talking about the texture.
Right.
And nowhere it doesn't say something about the texture. And I understand this might hurt people. People might get mad as hell. They might unsubscribe and everything else. But that's just simply not our problem. What we're trying to do is convey a message to biblical students, for people who are studying intelligent arguments. They won't look at us like we crazy. And a lot of you got a lot of these Israelites, so-called Israelites out here running around with this Bible, and they are spewing out some doctrine that make them they don't even look mentally, or should I say, they don't even sound mentally stable, man. And that's just the truth of the matter, man. They just don't even sound like they have some mental issues. So what we dealing with here today, man, we dealing with biblical text. Okay? White like wool, white as snow. Then he's going to describe his eyes.
And his eyes were as a flame of fire.
This is not the Genesis when he talking about how the eyes was red with wine. People say the flames is red. No, it's not, man. We talking about a brightness.
Right.
That's what we dealing with. A brightness.
This is glory.
This is what is described.
He was being allowed to see glory.
Glory. Now, if you got hair white, the brightness of a flame in his eyes, and what else, bro?
And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace.
And they, as if, do you have, look, I'm a plumber. That's what I do.
That's what you do.
And we do this thing called brazing. Now, when we braze, what we have to do, they actually, sometimes it's copper fittings, and brass, same thing, is just a mixture of alloys and metals. You have a darker brass, you have a brighter brass, you understand? But what we have to do is, when we're going to braze, we have to heat the fitting and pipe up so hot that it turns bright yellow. You ever see them cats who work on swords?
Yeah, and they beat them.
And the sword is no longer on the flame, but it now is on the metal. I forget what you call a doggone metal piece.
It's on the anvil.
The anvil. And what color is the tip of that sword that they beating?
Oh, it's yellow.
It's yellow. It's bright yellow.
It might be a red mixture in there as you get near the cooler part of.
Exactly. But when you take it off the flame, it's no longer on it. It's been burned, because they want to use the past tense. It's been burned on it. When you take it off of it, it's still bright yellow, bright red, and then they beat it. Well, we do the same thing when we braise pipe. So bright, and if it ain't bright, like a light bright, I'm not. When it get red, it's not as hot as it should be. We got to heat it up to it's a bright yellow, where it's more yellow than red, and then that's the only way that our brazen rod is going to melt.
Right.
It's not going to melt no other ways. Other way is just too cool. So I see metal heated. Other people who work with metals and alloys and heat it up, you see this. Smiths see it all the time. What we're looking at is the fine brass that as it had burned in the furnace. Now what's interesting about this is, if you look up the word burn in this text, It is 4451. It is ignition. It's still ignited. That's where it's coming from. Smelting, conflagration, burning, not being burnt per se, but burning, like it burned upon the hot coals.
And this right here, if you would, brother,
go ahead, bro.
When you look at the text, and I'm just saying from just trying to understand when the word is being used as a verb or an adjective or anything of that nature, it said his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. So when he was looking at it, it was as if his feet were stepping out of a furnace and were presently burning while he was looking at it. Not as if they had been burned in a furnace, but as if they, it says, but as if they burned. Not as if they had burned,
right,
but as if they burned in a furnace.
Good point.
So when you step out and you see one, it could be similar to whatever the heck they saw when they looked in that furnace and saw somebody in there who was bright. They knew they threw 3 men in Daniel, but they saw one in the furnace who they saw a glorious one, and they're like, yo, it's 4 in there. And they turned the furnace off. But you notice how when they went to go take him out of the furnace, whoever that fourth one they saw wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
But this here is given the context of, as he was looking at the feet, not he was looking at them had been in a fire and cooled off, like they had been burnt.
That's right.
But as if they burned, and that gives you a present
tense of burning.
Yeah.
Not that they had burned and turned dark, but then again, even if you say that the brass that these cats are talking about, like it's burnt, black burnt, that don't even complement the imagery.
Right.
The imagery itself is talking about something bright, eyes as a flame, hair white like wool. It don't make sense to bring in a blotch, because that's what it would be. The blackness will be a blotch to the rest of the brightness that's being shown in the glory of this image.
And 16 helps us out even more. I mean, well, as we go down further.
Go ahead, bro.
It's the end of 15, and his voice as the sound of many waters, and he had in his right hand 7 stars, something glowing.
Something glowing.
And out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength.
If it was any black in there, it would have been a blotch. He was lit up like the sun shining in his strength.
His feet looked like brass, like he walking out of a furnace.
That's right.
That's the imagery.
It's glowing. That's right. It's glowing.
His feet was glowing like fine brass coming out of a furnace. His hair white like wool, showing you how ancient he is. How ancient he is. Hair is white as snow. Now his eyes is like flaming fire. And in Daniel, the one he saw, his face had the appearance of lightning.
That's still a brightening and light glowing. Even when you say the hair, if you look at the outskirts of the sun, it looks like like a white halo around it sometimes. Just the brightness.
Right, and that could, I mean, that's a good point. It may not, and the reason why it may even further get away from the texture of the hair and the appearance of it is because whatever if his face, it said his countenance, we know the countenance comes from the face. If his face shineth like the sun, then you would consider the outwards of that to probably be the head area, the head area you're looking at, and that's going to have that white glow.
The whitest glow around it.
It's just, I mean, we could fail in our attempt to understand what we're looking at, but one thing we don't see here is woolly hair.
It don't say nothing.
We see hair that is white like sheep's wool or white as snow.
White as snow. We don't see anything here about dark brass.
Right, black burnt feet.
That's not pure brass.
No, they're burning feet.
They're burning as they burned. Not had burned, but as they burned in the furnace. And if you want to read it in the Greek lexicon, it used the same present tense as in that his feet had been in that furnace presently. So when we read it here, clears it right up. Regular English. It burned in the furnace.
And it says here, just to read it again, this is Daniel 10:6. Where you
Daniel 10:6. Yes.
It says, his arms and his feet like in color to brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. So when you see this here, and it said his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass. The polished brass, even if you want to look here and say, okay, now this is finished work. If you look at the photos that were shown,
that's right.
The polished brass has a glow and a shine to it.
Shine and sparkling to it. It ain't got no black to it whatsoever. Look at the clips. It looks almost like silver. A silvery gold.
Right.
Nothing black to it. Nothing dark like you see this image. This is cheap brass, man. Okay? Bronze brass.
Right.
This is not fine brass.
Right. No, bronze brass and fine brass is two different things.
Two different things. But like we pointed out to you here, and then when you read it in Revelation 2.
Revelation 1?
Revelation 2. Now, it's written again in Revelation 2 in verse 18.
Oh, you going over to chapter 2?
Right, chapter 2.
In 18. And unto the angel of the church in Thyatira, he writes, these things saith the Son of God, who hath his eyes like unto a flame of fire.
Right.
And his feet are like fine brass.
But he's making reference back to chapter 1.
Right, to what he saw.
To what he really seen. It was like they had burned fine brass as had burned, or as, say it again, bro, fine brass that burned. It didn't say had.
Right, as if they burned in a furnace.
As if
not
they burned.
as if they had burned.
Exactly.
But as if they burned.
As if they burned. So you look upon the coal. Look at the clips. As you look upon the coals, you look at these metal alloys burning in this furnace. What color are they? Ain't got nothing to do with black. And just like this image here in Revelation chapter 1 and Revelation chapter 2, we're not dealing with skin color. We're not dealing with hair texture. We're dealing with the glorified Christ that John had seen, which was beginning to be revealed to him. Nothing to do with skin color. Are we saying that Christ's not black? No, that's not what we said.
Right.
We telling you that Revelation 2 isn't dealing with skin color or hair texture.
And I'm confident to say that in the showing of his glory, pardon me, this ain't got nothing to do with skin color, because you're dealing with one who is now hitting in that cloud, if you will, with the Father. So when he revealed himself, he revealing himself in a way that describes what? The glory. Because you can't say he walking around red-eyed like he been up all night, like he ain't got no sleep, his eyes red,
drinking,
his face shining like the sun. What you saying? Like he just like got up in the morning, like, you know, you in the wintertime, your mama put you on the bus stop when you was a kid and you got petroleum jelly all on your face. No, that's not. The sun, all of this got something to do with the glorious one. He saw the glorious Son of God, and he showed him imagery to see that. And when Yeshua, I believe it could be John, I don't know what chapter it is in John. Could it be John 9 when he, the so-called transfiguration?
One of them. You can find a couple of texts, but y'all know what we mean.
Yeah, but he showed, and it's like his countenance was like, man, like the brightness of the pure sun or something.
The purest of the sun, and just bright.
Yo, they said his clothes was white, like a certain kind of like, that's all they could compare it to just let you know, man, this man was shining and glowing.
Just lit up.
You know something else I want to throw in there? In the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3. In Habakkuk chapter 3, he gives an imagery of the Creator coming. And people, you got to remember this. I mean, you get to stuff talking about the Lord where it's talking about he came and the earth trembled and the smoke came out his nose and this, that. Yeah. Like, what? So what is we talking about a Rastafarian deity or something? He's sitting up there. Yeah. He was smoking ganja on his way to save man or something. He got smoke coming out. He's talking about like fury and
horns in his hands,
everything
and all this other stuff.
Habakkuk said the same thing in chapter 3 of Habakkuk, verse 3. It says, God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise, and his brightness was as the light. Now, if his brightness is as the light,
there you go.
Everything else dealing with him is dealing with a brightness.
A brightness.
He had horns coming out of his hand, And there was the height of his power, because the horns just represent power.
That's right.
Before him went the pestilence. And that's a whole bunch of just like power and I mean, whatever
you want to call it.
And burning coals went forth at his feet. So if you want to use the same imagery, burning coals, like presently burning at his feet. And if his feet was like fine brass, as if they burned in the furnace, if you use the same imagery from here,
that's right.
These burning coals, burning, not, you ever seen the ambers in your, in your barbecue
grill, yeah, when you cooking.
And that's burning coals.
Burning coals.
Burning. And when you put brass in there and it heat up, fine brass, and it heat up, you just got the imagery of from top to bottom. He just saw an illuminated, glorious one. We still don't get the idea of some dark, cooled off, black African looking feet or something.
No, we don't, man. In fact, that black brass isn't pure brass either.
And even that black brass don't look like none of you Negroes.
Exactly.
Even this don't look like none of us.
No, it don't.
Let's say the cheap, burnt looking stuff. Who this look like? Who you know come look, this look more like olive.
Yeah.
Color of some olives or something then. But it's called dark because it's the darker pigment from the more lighter, more finer looking ones. So dark is still not black this or black hamite or what I look like. It's just the dulled off cheapest form.
That's what that is.
And at the end of the day,
and this ain't no pure brass.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we can't look at the Lord like that and be like he was just all shining, but we knew he was a black man because he had some black feet.
Come on, man. Come on. We not even representing the Bible like that, man. If we gonna deal with the Bible, let's deal with the Bible. And like we read here in Habakkuk, his feet, where was his feet at? Right upon a burning coal.
His feet were in the burning coals went forth at his feet.
Burning coals went forth at his feet. All right, so even if you talk about his feet was so lit up, it lit the coals, however you want to look at it. We're talking about something being illuminated.
Right, that's all.
Just like in Revelation, we're talking about something being illuminated. And before we close out here, again, if you look it up, 44:51 is talking about conflagration. What is that? Fire, man. That is a fire. That is a flame. All right, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it is. When something is lit up, they describe this as conflagration. All right. What else is it describing? I lost my place here real quick. Burning, like presently burning. Now, one means conflagration.
I was just looking for something, but excuse me, I couldn't find it. But the idea behind it was just trying to give forth the context of even the age, like you have an age of weaponry called the Bronze Age.
True.
Right?
That's
now,
right.
when you look at the Bronze Age, you really think that they ran around with bronze, or basically bronze is just the finished product of brass. You think they ran around with swords looking like this? They had shiny, glittering weaponry, brass helmets, brass breastplates. The stuff was shining when it was finished and polished. That's and right. It would probably, you would think it was gold, or probably, like you said, some kind of silver, but even the brass age and the weaponry used doesn't signify
like
some dark weapons or dark helmets, this, that, and third. Brass is the material, but if you refer back to the imagery shown a little while ago, you will actually see that it has the context of a very shiny, that when light hit it, it's something that could barely, you had to put your eyes up at it.
It's glittering. It's sparkling. And we know light was hitting it because everything else lit up. Face like the sun, flame. So we know light was hitting it. So we dealing with a glittering, man. We not dealing with no black skin color. And for all of those who mad at that, then ain't really nothing I can tell you.
Yeah, just go to something else and use it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk
go
about
to Tacitus,
probably the color of the Hebrews and whatever color they was, that's the color Jesus would have to be. We ain't got no issue with that. But this is him. This is a vision from heaven.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a vision from heaven, and everything we read was heavenly vision.
Yeah, all vision, imagery. He had a sword coming out of his mouth. I mean, come on. But anyhow, we're going to end it with that one, man. We just had to deal on that one. All Bible students, I'm sure with an open mind, you understand where we're coming from.
Hey, brothers and sisters, that's what it is. Hopefully it makes sense to you. You got questions, hit the links, call us, visit the website, the emails, however you need to contact us. We're willing to talk candidly with those who's serious.
Exactly.
And not with people who just want to argue about the skin color. Come on.
Exactly. So with that, we say, till the next time, peace to you all.